Welcome, everybody, to the House of the European Union. We're about to get started here. In a minute. So hi, my name is Christine Vest. I'm the Senior Cultural Affairs Officer at the European Union delegation based in Washington, D.C. And I'm very excited to have an excellent panel here today where we're going to be talking about indie musicians and steps to success. So if you're an indie musician and you would like to learn some tips and tricks, this is for you. So I give it to you, Vicki, to take it away.
Excellent, thank you. We're here. We actually all made it to South by. It's so amazing to see this crowd. I'm Vicki Nauman. I am the founder of Cross Border Works, which is a consulting and advisory company that helps tech companies make sense of the music industry. And we have really amazing panelists here today to talk about all different angles of the indie and creator economy. And so what I'd like to do is very first, I'd like to have everybody introduce themselves. We have Hessel coming in from remote, but Andrea, why don't we start with you, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Awesome, and thank you for coming. We're so excited. It's so good to see so many people all in one place, in person, in real life. I'm Andrea Gleason. I'm the CEO of TuneCore. If you're not familiar with TuneCore, we're a digital distributor that is open platform. There's no gatekeeper. You can get your music out into Spotify, iTunes, TikTok, all for a flat fee. And so the TuneCore business has been open for about 16 years now, and have seen just the transition over the years of artists that had a lot of changes, a lot of success, and they've gone on label deals, come back, and so this is a great discussion. I'm very excited to be here. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Li Ning. I'm a Berlin-based artist, singer, performer, producer. I work in different fields of arts, and I'm very happy to be here. I think I might have some insights as an artist, but I'm also very curious to hear what everybody else has to say.
And Hessel.
Hi there, my name is Hessel, and I'm actually... Do you hear me?
Sound.
Sound. Oh, one moment.
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, can you hear me? So my name is Hessel, and I'm actually very unhappy to be here and not there with you. So my apologies for that part. I'm the co-founder of music licensing company Tribe of Noise. We are based in the Netherlands. We do operate on a global scale. You might have not heard of Tribe of Noise, but we are also the custodians of the iconic free music archive. So we do as much as we can for independent, self-releasing musicians, net labels, curators, and try to make sense out of this beautiful digital world.
Fantastic. So what we're going to do is we just have three main topics that we're going to talk about today, and we're going to bring in everyone's perspective. We will have time at the end for questions, and so please hold your questions until the end. But the first topic is really that indie artists are on the rise. It is by a long measure the fastest growing segment of our industry, both from the number of songs that are being released, the revenue that's being produced, the amount of engagement between fans and independent artists. This is something that I've been working in digital since the beginning, really, in 1999, 2000. There's probably people here that weren't born at that time. But it was when the first Napster started, I thought, okay, this is going to change everything. And there was a theory in the early days around the long tail, and that there would be opportunities for a more democratized industry. There was a period of time where that didn't look like that was going to pan out, but it actually feels like it's happening now. Mm-hmm. So, Andrea, you've done some work on different studies with Medea, and you've really had the history. Can you talk a little bit first about what these dynamics are and some of the data points?
Yeah, it's all about the data. So last year, every year Medea does its report on the growth of the music industry, and overall total recorded music in 2020, from a revenue perspective, grew 7%. but DIY artists grew 34%. So that really shows that sea change and has actually become, from a revenue perspective, the fastest growing sector of the music industry. So when we step back and we think about why, what has changed, because like I mentioned earlier, TuneCore's been around for 16 years. I think that that's one piece of the puzzle, is that there is a removal of the gatekeeper in saying, hey, this music should make it out on Spotify. That has been gone for a while, but an important part. What has changed is two other things. One is the access for artists to connect with fans directly. And third is, I think that the algorithms on the digital platforms are optimizing the listening experience for listeners. And because of that, it's creating more music discovery for artists that maybe wouldn't have been able to be in front of those listeners potentially. So to dive into that a little bit, so what do I mean by connecting with fans? TikTok has blown up during the pandemic. And something that I've seen happen a lot to a lot of artists is that they are releasing early cuts of their music onto TikTok, and then it's resonating with the fans, and they are literally skyrocketing to the top, and then it creates offline success where they are building those fans. And so you've got a platform like TuneCore that's been out there for a while. You can get your music out, and then you're connecting with the fans, and then those fans are sitting there and listening to the rest of what else you have going on. And there's almost a joy that comes with it for the listeners, because they're happy they unearthed this music that somebody else maybe wouldn't have pointed them to, or it's not on the top 100 on the radio, and it's exciting. And then for the algorithms, what I've seen is, for example, Spotify has audio play and radio, where if you have that turned on, it's almost like, if you shop on Amazon and you're looking at a sweater and it'll give you another sweater that's like similar. It's like that for music, where it sees that your kind of listening patterns, and then it'll recommend other music. And so what happens is, really pertinent to this discussion around crossing borders, is that an artist that's like sitting in Argentina may be very popular in Argentina, which is typically the case for most local artists, is they're very big in their local territory, but now they're crossing over to some other markets because listeners have an affinity to listen to an artist like that. So I would say that those are like some of the trends that I've seen of why this growth is really exploding.
And so what I'm also hearing is tools, and that artists have access to tools to be able to connect them to fans. What is your perspective on that?
I think there's just so I think as an artist, the first thing that you have to find out is who you want to be, what kind of art do you want to put out, who do you want to connect with, like your audience. You need to kind of like figure out in what kind of setting you want to experience yourself, your music, create, explore. And this is made so much easier through all of these new tools, because now you can kind of like figure out different platforms like TikTok, for example, but also Instagram is still a platform that you can connect so easily with such a broad audience. Snapchat sometimes works actually in some regions, and using these platforms to kind of figure out your own artistry and your persona makes it so much easier to also then connect with the right tools, the right promotional tools, because you already kind of know what audience you want to address. And so that's, I think, very beautiful about all these new platforms coming up.
And do you find your audience is different in different platforms?
Oh yeah, for sure. I also had this experience because you said that there's sometimes these there's this growth that is unexpected. One of my songs was played on a TV show in Belgium in a very intimate scene, and all of a sudden the audience really loved the song, and there's this fan base around that one series that all of a sudden also comes on my platform and wants to communicate and wants to, because this scene was also about two male representing people that have a romantic relationship. So they were interested also in queer rights, in how I as an artist am supporting queer rights. And so there's all of a sudden this mutual ground that we can connect on. And that happened mainly on Instagram and YouTube. But then on TikTok, for example, it's a complete different crowd, and it's very like geographically connected. So when I'm in Germany, the audience on TikTok is different than in the US, for example.
Well, that's a great transition into your platform, Hessel, because you're trying to open up commercial opportunities, and you're trying to simplify music and for independent artists and connect them with the marketplace. Can you talk a little bit about some of the trends you're seeing?
Absolutely, and I think the word here is empowerment of the musician. Because if I look at the digital service providers today, like Spotify, for example, and that news came out, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, is that they're now looking to staff up their AI ethics team. So many of the algorithms are actually the new gatekeepers. So although some of the old gatekeepers are gone, there are new gatekeepers, and they're called algorithms. They have to step up their game, like not with, because I think they're looking now for 2 additional staff members. I would suggest to have a 50 or 100, because their recommendations, there's still a lot of inequalities in the recommendations that you get from Spotify, for example. So I think that's one of the other things. What we've seen during the huge amount of the increase of the independent musicians producing music is that the gap is actually widening between the DSPs and the self-releasing artist. It has to do with control, I think, also with Spotify and TikTok. They have shareholders. They have to take care of the shareholders, of course. That's not per se the same interest as the individual artist that maybe wants to reach an audience or wants to experiment with new music for a new audience. So I think the earliest thing I can say now to the people listening to this session, but in general, is that the individual artist has to step up and be 10 times more critical than they have been so far. There are so many tools out there, and every time when I give a talk to students or musicians or Berkeley music, and then every single time it's like we don't know which tools to use. There are so many. So my suggestion to the individual artist today is to be super critical and ask yourself, like, what is this tool doing for me? Can I stay in control of my rights? Can I take my audience if I don't like the platform? Or is the audience actually owned, and all the metadata, is that actually owned by the platform? Do I just see like an overall, like your audience in America is doing better than in Germany, for example? Or can I actually pinpoint that a specific musician bought a t-shirt worth $30? And can I take that audience back to me and go to another platform? So be way more critical than you are today. I think that's my first tip of the day, if I can call it.
That's great. Well, and we were talking in advance of the panel, and I think it's not easy to navigate this industry. And if you're making a choice to be an independent artist, there's usually a lot of reasons for that. It's not just that, I don't want to sign with a label. It's usually around creative control, wanting to experiment, being driven by other things that have to do with diversity and equality. And there's an initiative that I wanted you to talk a little bit about called Key Change, which is vibrant in Europe, and now want to kind of light it up over here. Mm-hmm. But tell us a little bit about it, Andrea.
Yeah, so I got involved with Key Change about a year ago. Something that always struck me since I joined TuneCore about 6 years ago. And the first thing that I noticed as I was getting to know about the customer base is just the underrepresentation of women. And only 28% of our clients were women. And I was like, why is that on an open platform?
Right.
And there's a lot of studies out there that get into what the gender parity is, and in general, the gap in diversity in the music industry across race and ethnicity, but not why. So we got connected with Minnie a year ago, and we did the first study around answering that very question. The findings were what you would expect. There's discrimination in the music industry, there's lack of access to resources and opportunities, and because you're in this environment, you have struggle with confidence. And these are the things holding creators back that are in more diverse groups from participating. And so we, once I got the findings, I'm like, okay, now what? Let's do something about it. And that's when I got connected with Key Change. I'm now the US ambassador for Key Change, and the EU sponsors Key Change. They're one of the many incredible sponsors that have been funding the organization. And we went to solve just that, which is how do we provide more access to resources and opportunities. And we're now working on bringing Key Change to the US later this year. And studies have shown that if you want to progress and continue this great growth going, you need to diversify. If you get the same kind of people sitting next to you that think exactly the same way as you and have the same ideas as you, you're not going to progress. And so it's a very, very important part of us progressing as an industry in making sure that on the executive side, we're more diverse, and then on the creator side, we're more diverse. And that as those changes occur, that the executive side also represents the diversity of the creators that they have. There was, Annenberg did the first study last year for how, in addition to the creator side, looking at the executives, and just like Black women are grossly underrepresented, Black executives in general. And so we have work to do. And if we focus on this, we can make a difference. And it's one of those things. My favorite. I grew up in LA, and I grew up watching Kobe playing basketball all the time. And what diversified him and made him stand out? He wasn't the tallest. He wasn't the most skilled. He just practiced, and he focused on those shots. After everybody was done, he focused on the things that he wasn't good at. And as a music industry, this is where we're not doing good, and we've got to focus on it.
And I think that's also, I'm just going to step in here. I think that's very important to us why you might want to become an independent artist or want to be an independent artist, because it's also about choices. It's about autonomy. It is about, especially when you are in a member of an underrepresented minority, you need to find the right people to help drive your project, especially as a member of the queer community, of the Black community. It's sometimes so hard, and I'm coming from Germany, and in that scene, there's just no representation. And what do you do when you come up as a young artist and you're faced with this wall that is called the industry? And you're like, what is the industry? Like, who is the industry? And there's just so many factors, and there's so many, and it's coming more and more. And you want to find the right people that help you and provide the space that you can thrive in. And I think these platforms really help, because traditionally you would kind of be bound to the area that you are brought up in, and that's kind of like the first territory that you have to tackle. But now with these apps, with all these possibilities that we are so connected globally, you can find an audience elsewhere that understands and connects with your art and with especially your message as well. And I think as an artist, it's more important now to have a message in your work than ever before. And so I think that's just such a beautiful opportunity, and having a project like Key Change is so necessary, because it really, really gives you that opportunity, and it helps you kind of like find a way through that like busy jungle of the industry.
Yeah, and just for those, if you're not familiar with what Key Change is, there's two parts to the program. There is a pledge program. So this is for organizations to say, I'm committing to X goals for my organization to be more diverse. And then you report on it every year. And then for the creator side, there's the participant program, and they do a year-long mentorship, giving access to resources and opportunities. They send artists to to South by Southwest and to across Europe, and give them access to experts to help them, continue to develop. And then they graduate at the end of the year, and they have a new class that comes in. So really incredible work that they've been doing, and very excited to explore the expansion for the U.S.
Well, it makes an enormous difference, and I come from a lot of things in the technology industry, but it makes an enormous difference when you have a homogeneous group of people around the table envisioning a product and envisioning what someone wants, if everyone has the same perspective. But it oftentimes takes really specific initiatives to force accountability on that, and to say, well, it goes to hiring, it goes to team members, it goes to really having values of having a different perspective from someone at the table.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about some of the differences between the U.S. and ex-U.S. for artists. There's different rights structures. There are different ways that you can collect money, and I'd love to start with you, Hessel, because you're right in the eye of the storm of trying to bring in independent artists to be able to deliver opportunities, and you had some really great points in our pre-panel about some of these differences that would be really good for U.S. artists to learn about.
Yeah, well, we're based in Europe, so that's, I think, already like a major difference with U.S. law and how musicians sign up with a performing rights organization like ASCAP or BMI, CSEC in the States, and compared to in Europe, how people are working together with people in the industry, totally different. And there's a super exciting, and this sounds really strange that I'm getting excited about a law, but there's a new EU directive, so European directive, on copyright. And the fun part there is that it actually points to all the major labels and all the major platforms that we know out there that actually help you, to get your music or your photos or, your books or your works, your creativity out there. And instead of where they normally would say in California lawyers would say like the person who will upload is like 100% responsible for what they upload, and the platform is never accountable. This new EU law says, well, actually the platform is accountable. So the platform actually needs the consent of the rights holder to actually upload and broadcast the material, which is a really funny part, because now all of a sudden you as a individual rights holder somewhere, when we're in Austin, you're a singer-songwriter and you're creating something you want to upload, all of a sudden the EU says, well, actually you have a voice at the big table. You can say, I'm okay or not okay. And now there's another interesting thing, and this is, there's also like a new vibe amongst lawyers, and that part is called conscious contracting, where two parties want to work together, and one party says like, okay, this is what I'm going to offer you, and the other party says like, well, if you're going to offer me, this is what I'm going to do for you. That's something totally different than all of us, in the room and watching this are used to work with the big platforms where you have to agree with terms of service. And I'm not about, I don't know about you, but I try to read them, but some of them are really lengthy, like 50, 60 pages that you go through terms of services. And, after page 3 or 4, you go like, whatever, I want to use this service. I'm okay with it. I have no idea what it says, actually. So what we have to do now is to actually, and that's why I said like take back control, you actually now have, due to this EU directive on copyright in Europe, you actually have a saying. And so my thing to every individual artist, before you work with anybody, Free Music Archive, TuneCore, Tribe of Noise, SoundCloud, anybody out there, make sure that you understand, verify, certify do whatever you can before you upload anything, that those rights are like well documented, that all the metadata is there, that it's clearly yours. And there are tools out there that you can use, but therefore you get a seat at the table, because now all of a sudden you are a person owning rights, and you can tell Facebook and TikTok and Amazon and Apple, I'm okay if you use my content, but here are my terms. And then we will get, in the upcoming years, we will get a very funny discussion between lawyers saying like, yeah, but you know, you were signing up with the service, so you agree with the terms of services. And the musician will say like, yeah, but I also added my own intentions and my own services. I think we have an equality here. So that could be super funny, and I would recommend everybody, it's an NGO from the Netherlands, to have a look at a wizard, an online wizard called TakeNode, NODE.org, TakeNode.org, where they can register whatever it's theirs, you know, so they can register a book, a song, film, photo, and they will get a unique identifier. They can even publish it on a online registry, so that you can do all kinds of reverse lookups. It's free of charge. You can use it for all kinds of content. It will timestamp your work, and that's a great little tool that I would say to everybody, like, you know, make sure that on your end everything is like, you know, done, and from that point on you can start to work with any tool that you want. But before you upload anything, make sure it's yours and
so
it's registered.
As a practical matter, that this has caused changes in the way YouTube operates and in social media, you know, in UGC platforms, because of the uploading and then having who's responsible, who's liable for those rights, and then if there's a takedown, so if you don't want your music in there, then it also has to stay down. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and I think, was it this week that TikTok launched their own distro platform? They have a new distro platform themselves, TikTok, called Sound On. And again, if you like quickly read the article that just describes what they're going to launch, it says something that the individual artist will have more audience insights, etc., 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 which is great. But you know, I've been a big fan of LinkedIn for many years, and a lot of my work is there, and I have groups on LinkedIn with 10, 15,000 members. But I don't feel in control over that audience. So again, can I grant them rights, but can I somewhere down the line also revoke those rights and get my audience back so that I can actually go to another platform? So if I don't like the TikTok distro platform, that I can take, you know, everything that I've done with all the metadata and my audience and just move over to another distributor? Is that possible? I think that those are the questions that should be asked and hopefully also answered by them, and hopefully EU and all, you know, lawmakers will find a way to actually enforce that you can actually revoke the rights, but also get all your metadata and all your rights and your audience back. Because if you have that audience, you can create business and you can create all these experiments for your music, for your ideas.
So when you're an independent artist, you have your master recording that you may put through TuneCore, you have your publishing, maybe you have a publishing administrator, you have your performance rights. With publishing alone, there's an average of 600 different income streams, revenue streams around the world. And so the other side of this is, if you're independent, that's great. However, it would be almost impossible for you to be collecting on all of the uses if you didn't have advanced and modern systems. So maybe, Andrea, you can talk a little bit about the importance of actually putting your music out, but then making sure that you're collecting on all those uses and that the money actually makes its way back to you.
So if you're a songwriter and you wrote part of the song that you put out, you should absolutely be registering it with a collection society or using a publishing administrator. If you're not doing that, you're definitely leaving money on the table. And you don't want to be doing that because there's money being put aside that is sitting there if you're not registered properly for it. And in going back to the original question around, okay, what are the considerations you have internationally? So most collection societies are set up to be very local, and at times they will have sub-publishing agreements with other territories. But if they don't, then you need to go register also locally. So this is where don't leave money on the table. It's very complicated. To your point, there's like hundreds of places you need to register your music, which is quite complicated. TuneCore has a publishing administration service. We do this for our artists to collect comprehensively as well as quickly, because it can take multiple years to actually collect all the money from around the world, especially if you have a global audience. What I would suggest is make sure you're looking and knowing where your audience is. If you have a very US audience, you're probably going to be okay with just registering with a local collection society. But if you've got a global audience, you definitely need to look into setting up a publishing administrator so you're collecting completely. There are many benefits. I feel like publishing has its own panel, so I don't want to go into all of it, but that's like the very high-level tidbit that is like game changer. So make sure.
This is also a point that as an independent artist, there's this myth that you kind of have to do everything by yourself, and that's absolutely false because, as Hassel also said, there's this new European law that is different in Germany, for example. There's been articles in Germany that kind of controverse that law, and knowing all of that stuff as an artist that just wants to concentrate on your art and on producing and writing is just too much to handle. And there is amazing people, organizations that can help you with it. And I think they're coming more and more, and they have specific outlooks as well. So if you are a certain artist, if you're female identifying, if you're of color, you can find people that really going to help you find your own spot and give you a comfort in your work so you can kind of continue doing your stuff, because it is very complicated.
Well, and for years, people have been told there's not that much money that is not attributed, where it's usually the master recording and the publishing, they are not able to be linked, and then neither one of them are able to be linked to the actual creators. So this is a myth. This is an absolute myth. And we have, just in the US, at the MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective that was set up as a part of the Music Modernization Act, there's $424 million. Now that money, that does not belong to the major publishers and the major writers. They have their data sorted, and that money belongs to all of you and all of the independent artists. And there are pools of money like that sitting everywhere in every country around rights, neighboring rights with radio, with mechanical rights, with performing rights, and it is not an insignificant amount of money. Now it does take work and it takes having your metadata straight, but there's real money there, and even if it's a small amount, it's worth fixing it because we really have no idea how big this industry will be, and over the course of time, then you'll be able to start collecting much more efficiently.
Hey Vicky, can I add one more thing, because it's a unique way how we are positioned here, with somebody from Germany, me from Holland, both from Europe, and then the US as well. Quick example is that with the American performing rights organizations, which is super nice and super great, they are competitive, which means that their service towards the composer is a much friendlier service than we know in Europe, which means that if I go to BMI or to SCAP or one of the other ones, I can actually say like, okay, take care and manage my compositions, my copyright. But for example, I would like to opt out a few songs, and with those 3 songs, I would like to do other experiments, like direct licensing deals, or maybe a platform with a completely new structure that hasn't been proven yet. And they are okay with that. In Europe, it works differently. So until 2014, there was just one big switch, like you're with us or you're against us. That changed, luckily. So now it's that, you know, on the usage cases, you can opt in or opt out your repertoire. So you can say, like, I will do my digital myself, and for live, I would like you to manage it, or radio and television. But with Germany and Holland and America, what we saw, for example, is that I tried to help artists that were in a money-making business model in Europe, direct license music for background music services. And in Germany, the Collecting Society only looked at the names of the composers in the American database and didn't look at if the songs were opted in or opted out. So on that note, they would say, like, yep, we recognize the person in the US, therefore we have to manage it, therefore we will block the direct licensing model, and therefore the artist is not getting paid because, yeah, we actually have no idea what music is being played in the stores and bars and restaurants in Germany, so we will pay out the major labels instead of the independents. And we said, like, yeah, but that's not a good model, especially not for the independent artists who actually had a business model there. And then we had to go to BMI and CSEC and ask them to write a letter to GEMA, the German Collecting Society, and tell them to, for specific songs, actually back off so that that direct license model could be in place. That's how confusing it is for me. Just understand how confusing it can be for the independent musician. But that's also why I'm saying, like, if you at least make sure that the songs and the repertoire, that everything is somewhere online so that people can backtrack and backtrace and double check data and not just look on the title and the name of the release, you know, the release date, those kind of things, but that they actually can listen to a file. The better you've documented your own work now and in the future, the more offers the better person you are at the table to negotiate your deal for today and for the future.
And I think this is why, like, because it is so complicated for these kind of things, it makes sense that now with platforms like Patreon or even like blockchain, NFTs, for example, it is easier for artists to create your own platform where you get money from, because what you want as an artist is to live from it. I mean, yes, you also want to create meaningful art and you want to put it out and share it, but you also want to be able to live from it. So having this opportunity to engage with an audience on platforms where you can directly manage your content, and then also manage the money that you get from interacting with the platform is such a special new place for independent artists to arise. And I think that's also why you said it. There's just so many more independent artists coming up now, because it is so possible to make a living from it on so many different ways. And it's not for everyone, and that's also important for you to know, that obviously some people are more tech driven. They can spend the time to engage with everyone, but then there's people that want to just create and be physical, and therefore, for example, a conference like this is so necessary as well, because you can make physical contact and you can meet the people that are actually behind the organizations and everything. I think this is so important also for you to understand as an independent artist. What is your strength? Like, how can you build on your own strength? Do you want to engage with people directly? Can you engage with a huge online community and then find a way how to monetize it and have time to create, actually?
Well, and I think you have a really interesting story as well, because you signed with an independent label.
Yeah.
And you didn't know very much about the industry.
No.
And then you learned. And so what is your path forward now?
Yes, so I wanted to work in film, and my best friend basically pushed me to become a singer, and then I fell into this whole thing. And I knew when I started that I wouldn't do it by myself without having a set structure, because I wouldn't work like that. So I signed this deal, and that was necessary and that was beautiful. But throughout the years that I've been working now and creating my art, I realized that I want to have ownership and autonomy over my own work, because also in Germany, for example, there's just so few people of color writing and queer producers, and that's just something that I need for my own project, just because they also understand the perspective that I'm coming from as an artist. And so I would have to go somewhere else to work with people, but now I can connect with other people, and having that autonomy and that ownership makes it easier for me to choose the people that I want to work with, the platforms that I want to release stuff on, but also how to make money. I think this is something that we sometimes forget. It can also be fun. It's not just a necessity always, but you also want to put a value to your work. You want to define the value that you want to have in your work, and sometimes, you know, like you write a song and you need it to be out, and you don't necessarily have to have something back, and it's just for the community, but then there's something else that you really want to monetize on. So you, like, finding your ways to kind of create that environment is so it's easier now, and it's beautiful if you have that autonomy as an artist.
But it's very challenging if you are in the traditional industry and you have 10 writers and you have 10 publishers and you have a split master and maybe you have samples in your recording, and if you want to go like the independent artist can do and go and just create an NFT, build a community, put your music in the metaverse, it's not so easy, you know? And so I'm seeing this pulling apart of what we know now, which is platforms that are licensing catalogs of music to Web3 and this, you know, next generation of experiences that are coming out where they're building tools for creators directly into the platforms. And that's great for people who own their own rights, because you can be nimble, you can navigate, you can build a community, you can light up your music in however you want. And so I feel like this is a perfect example of where the independent community is actually better positioned for Web3 than the traditional music industry, because of the, if nothing else, just the fragmentation of rights. I'm mindful of time, and what I'd like to do is I'd like everyone to just, we've given a little bit of advice, but I'd like to have each of you give a bit of advice and then open it up for questions if anyone in the audience has questions.
Yes, on the Web3, we were talking about this a little earlier. I feel like the established music industry, I use a cruise ship analogy, but you had oil tanker. I like that a little better. It's like an oil tanker barely trying to turn. And the independent art seems like a speedboat. It's like, you can move very nimbly. The best advice I would give is experiment. What I love that has happened in the last few years is that there have really emerged these access to fans in micro communities. So what do I mean by that? Twitch, a great example. It is all about live. The fans there are passionate. If you find an audience there, you may actually find that you don't have a strong streaming, like revenue coming from streaming, but you can make a living off your art on Twitch because it's totally different. I think that, as we talked a lot about on TikTok, they lean into that. Can't even begin to tell you how many artists I spoke to that had those viral hits, that they did an early cut of a song. It was not final. They just put it out just as like a little teaser, recorded in their car while they're driving to like Thanksgiving dinner, and it shoots up to the top. And experiment. The thing that you think is like polished and done may not be what fans are resonated with. And so loosen it up and get more experimental with it. And in gaming, I mean, this is very much, I don't think, set up for indie artists yet. But Epic Games, I think, just announced that they acquired Bandcamp. So you can see the movements in gaming happening for sure, where I do think that there's going to be, again, micro communities. There's very niche audiences in these games where music and gaming is going to become a thing. And so experiment, have fun. I like that you said you had fun. Lean into this, make it you. Don't be someone you're not, but experiment.
Okay.
Yes, I can just agree. I think my advice would be just know who you are, know what you want. My drummer, who's here with me in Austin, said something very important this morning as well. Know how to say no. because a no most of the time is a yes to who you are and a yes to what what path you want to follow on. And then also see all the opportunities. There's not just one opportunity. You can find other ways to collaborate. You can, for example, I'm working on my album right now. I want it to be a visual album because I'm into film as well, and to find partners that can help you create this without doing like awkward product placements, but ways to like really feature these products that help that brand, but also me, because it makes sense in the whole of the art form, is a way to make money, but still be true to who you are and what you want to put out. I think that's just so necessary and important. And then also just know that you're good at what you're doing. Like, you are good at what you're doing. So that's important in any conversation that you're having.
And Hessel, do you have any recommendations, advice?
Yeah, well, we started with saying DIY artist, and I always am thinking like DIY. You know, it's not that they have to do it themselves. We can do this together. So yeah. I think, and hopefully this doesn't sound like a product placement, but what I can bring to the table now is that we have on not on Tribe of Noise, but on Free Music Archive, so the American platform. We have huge traffic. There's like 1-2 million page views per day, 2-3 terabytes of music being downloaded every single day. And all the music featured there is from individual artists that we don't hear on national radio and television. People who want to express themselves, people who want to share their music, people who want to just reach out to an audience that they might or might not have. So that's the first thing I can say is do it together. I can go there, use it as you like. It's yours. If you don't like it, we will figure out a way to get all your data out of there so that you can go somewhere else. But I think you would like it. The other thing that I would like to say in general is like whenever you see a promising platform, a technology, or somebody talks to you and says like, oh, you have to, you need to own NFTs, or you have to be in the metaverse, or for that matter on Twitch or TikTok, ask them the question, show me the money, and just, if it's about money, if it's just about having fun and building an audience and just doing your thing, that's a different thing. But if you have to pay your bills from creating and your music, then ask the question, show me the money. On Twitch, you might work out that it's worth $1 to $2 per stream. Is that enough? On TikTok, there's another value there. So go for those questions and go slightly in that. And then last but not least, I think, try to own the space. Try to own that space with a small group of family members, friends, fans, build with them, co-create with them, and not asking them to make your music, but, to help you to get the word out there, or to give you some feedback, or to introduce you to a new group, or, you're not alone. This space is so much fun to do with a lot of other people that you are the creative, but you're definitely not alone. So that's why I actually hate the DIY title. I would say self-releasing artist, great, that's what you do. Yeah. But you're not alone. This space is there for you. All the tools are there, but just be super critical, and you will find friends on the way. Definitely.
Well, and it's a great example that you used earlier of what you have to do with performing rights to actually be able to collect. I mean, what artist wants to spend their time doing that? You want to spend your time creating art. You don't want to spend your time, understanding how all the different societies have reciprocal agreements around the world, but you still want the money. So you find people who are really good at that to act on your behalf. Are there any questions in the audience? Oh, great.
Oh, wow.
Excellent. And when you, it's hard for us to see you because we have lights on us, but when you, I think they have a mic, or even if not, oh good, we do have a mic. So please introduce yourself and then ask a question.
Hi, my name is Pablo. I'm also a DIY artist, or whatever you can brand us. I do have a question about something that was mentioned about these reports around the music artist in TuneCore and the percentages, and I'm very interested to know and very curious because one thing that I haven't heard mentioned yet is the involvement of indie labels and how they play into this structure. And I'd like to know what percentage of your artists in TuneCores are related in TuneCore through an indie label versus directly themselves, because I know that that makes a big difference. And that's something that as an independent artist, you immediately see that there's this whole promotional side after signing up to TuneCore that you need to go after that is not on TuneCore, and sometimes it feels like trying to blow up a balloon that has a hole on the other side. So you go and you spend money on the PR campaign, and you go looking for people and networking, and then it creates a little bit of interest and a little bit of noise for a couple of months, 3 months, and then it deflates again. And that's what happens with every release. So it would be very interesting to know how that works into the formula, and what TuneCore sees as some advice that you can give us on how to work with that. Because I imagine that most of your most successful artists on TuneCore are actually through indie labels and not just directly.
It's a mix. It's a mix. Some of them are directly working with us. There's an artist, her name's Lauren Spencer Smith. She did exactly the example I gave earlier, where she did an early cut on TikTok and then released it in the beginning of the year in January, and went straight to the top, and she was sitting right next to Adele on the UK charts. But now she hit a point where she outgrew TuneCore. There is a point where you do need a team around you. I think you said that very well. And I think you'll know it. At first, you have to wear a lot of hats. You are wearing all the hats, and it's good in a way because you're educating yourself. So when you do hire that team member, you're not, you're a little bit more informed and making sure that they're working for you properly. But to answer your question, it's a mix. So about 17% of our accounts that use TuneCore are indie labels, and they use us kind of in a B2B capacity. But then the vast majority is artists, and they're working with us directly. Russ, another great example. He started on TuneCore. He went off and did a record label deal, and then he came back. So there's no right and wrong. I think you have to see where you're at, see what makes sense for you. And there is a lot of experimentation at the beginning. Be careful about marketing companies. I'm going to give a little plug here. Make sure that you really know what they're doing for you for the money you're spending, because some of them will do streaming fraud, and that actually can work against you. I feel like this is an important topic I want you guys all to really, really take very seriously. If you are hiring a marketing company, make sure you know what they're doing and that they're not like buying strings for you, because that will put you in bad standing with the stores and actually can get your music blocked or removed. So be very careful about that. So it's hard at the beginning, and you are going to do some things that start to gain traction. Keep the momentum going. I think something that I would say for, and I'm mindful of the time, there may be other questions. I'm going to wrap it up here. Just keep experimenting. If you see something working, do more of it. If you do something and it's not working, do less of it. I know that sounds really simple, but it is hard at the beginning, and then you'll find your way. But just keep leaning into the things that are working, and keep trying, keep experimenting.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Sorry, it took too long with that.
No, that's okay. Okay. I can see a few hands here, but
Just pick one.
Hi, Tessa. I'm an artist manager. I'm curious, so we talked about, or you mentioned black box royalties a little bit earlier, those hundreds of millions of dollars just kind of sitting around. How would an artist go about finding the road to get to that box, or how would they tell their management who to talk to, how to find that? Because I think a lot of artists, maybe not a lot, but people know that exists, but have no idea how to get from A to B.
Exactly. It's almost exclusively metadata, and so if you are a writer and you have composition rights, In the US, you should make sure that the Mechanical Licensing Collective has your data and that it has unique identifiers in there. You should also probably go to MRI, Music Reports Inc., and on the recording side, make sure Sound Exchange has your data correctly, and then if you have your music distributed through a DSP from just, a company like TuneCore or CD Baby or DistroKid, all of those companies are great. And so I would imagine that your master recordings are probably good in the DSPs, but in Sound Exchange, there's a lot of, things come into Sound Exchange for radio style streaming from a lot of different sources. So you should have your management team look for all of those things. And then outside of the US, I would definitely say it's worthwhile having a publishing administrator, having, TuneCore, Songtrust, Cobalt, all really, really good, simple platforms that you can get your composition rights in and have somebody else collect on your behalf. There was a hand right here. I can only see the outside, and you're kind of almost doing like a, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But,
Thank you. Hi, my name is Pablo. I'm an independent artist. And now with Web3, now you can do these like crowd funds where you can raise these major budgets in exchange of like royalty percentages to your fans and all that. Us as independent artists, like what's a smart way for us to use those budgets together with these traditional methods and all that, maybe with marketing or publishing and all that? How can we implement like the best of both worlds for the best of us,
Well, I think it's a great question because, you need money in music. You need money to be able to pay a team, use platforms, get access to it, and if you have a fan base, you can leverage that through a lot of these Web3 platforms. I do feel like I'd like to toss that to you, Lee, because I think it really depends what you need. Probably is going to vary a lot depending on where you are in the stage of your career. If you need marketing, if you need help on touring, if you need help in the studio. But you had some really great things to say about this earlier about marrying up the team around where you are in your career.
I'm a little critical sometimes about blockchain, not about blockchain itself, but I think right now where it is, it's kind of very specific for certain people. So you just need to engage constantly to really get to see that revenue. And I think especially when you are well connected in the crypto community, it works in your favor. It might work in your favor, but right now it's still in the beginning of it. So what you want to look for, and I think that's kind of like the question that you're asking, is to still really find a team that is helping you with all the rights situations that we talked about earlier, like the whole situation around copyright, about your master's rights, etc. You want to have people that know how it works globally, but also in the territory that you work from. So that's kind of where you want to direct your money to. But also, obviously, you are like it costs so much to produce, and it costs so much to pay people, musicians, studio musicians, and you want to kind of like give them the money that they deserve.
And there are also ways, where like, there's a little company here called Beat Bread, where if you have a little bit of data, you can access capital. So you can submit your reports from TuneCore and whomever else, and you can actually bring your revenues forward, basically give yourself an advance. So there are lots of mechanisms to be able to get access to capital. And the one thing, the cautionary tale I would say about any of these things with blockchain and back-end royalties is you need to really understand, is that platform going to be around? Do they have funding? Is this something where, you're helping them because you're putting your music in there? You just really want to make sure that whatever they're architecting is going to actually work for you. But there are plenty of sources of capital, and even some distributors now are able to offer small advances.
I mean, we do through Utopia, so.
Yeah.
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 It just connects it to your historical earnings, and then it tells you how much you're eligible for.
Exactly. And downtown just, announced a $200 million fund to be able to advance to independent creators through their platforms. So money is plentiful, and so just have your eyes wide open where you're getting it from and what the strings might be attached.
Can I add one to that one?
Yeah, of course.
Is also don't forget about the revenue models that are around for quite some years now. So have a look at all the platforms offering you basic synchronization deals so that you get like instant money from music being licensed to YouTubers, podcasters, TikTokers, people making documentaries. That is real revenue that's coming in straight away to independent artists right now. And the other thing in America, not in Europe, but in America, tipping is still a big thing. So if I look, for example, on some of the platforms that we host, where we just have a tip box, you still see some decent cash coming in when you put new music out there, or if you reach out to your audience, which is something typical to the United States, I guess, and not so typical to Europe. But those are just two simple, basic models to actually get revenue in.
That's great. So maybe we have one final question. Okay. Okay. Someone over here. I'm blinded by the light here.
Hi, my name is Laura. I'm an artist manager, and my question was, you guys mentioned focusing on building on various micro communities. What's the best way to redirect those communities to places that actually yield revenue, or is it better to find a way to monetize on those platforms themselves?
Yeah, that's great.
I would say both. So in the TikTok example, literally fans were writing, I need this on Spotify now. So get it on Spotify and link it there. Immediate connection. I think that, everybody uses these platforms very differently. And I don't think that they're always sort of separated. So an artist that is discovered on TikTok, if they want to see more, they'll go to Instagram. So it's important that you do build on what that artist is about on those platforms so they can explore more. I think of back in the day, I grew up with CDs, and you'd have your jewel case. That was the extent of what you can engage with for artists. But today, you have all the things of the internet, which is good and bad. But you want to show what that artist is about, the equivalent of that jewel case in 3 dimensions, well, not two dimensions, with video, with rich content in the Instagram feed, which is where a lot of artists fans will engage with their artists, and I think is really great for building that relationship. So there may be where do they discover it and where they build it. In the Twitch example, it is all kind of isolated within Twitch, and you can kind of do both there, where it's both discovery and building. So it kind of depends on the platform, but this is where you kind of have to find out, experiment, and see where your audience is, and then based off who that audience is, where are they? So if they're younger and they're not on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, be there to build the relationship. You've got to kind of see who your audience is and then make sure that you're creating that cross relationship, and definitely get them back to listening to the music. I mean, do content around your release that it's coming out on Spotify now, and so you're always gonna want to give them the behind the scenes, but also connect them back to where you're gonna make money.
And I think you want to be transparent about what you want from your audience. Like if you are trying to kind of hide the fact that you want them to engage, they're gonna know and they're not gonna like it. But if you are honest about your intentions, and if you're honestly just asking them to engage and get to the platforms and help you as an artist, they will want to do that because they like you as an artist and they want to support you. But if you're like being shady, then
And you can have your music out everywhere, in every single platform, and then you can also peel off your most critical, loyal fans into Patreon or other kinds of platforms where you're not only able to monetize that, but you're able to have a closer relationship. And that's, I think, what really engaged fans want, is they want to have more of a relationship with artists that they care about. But I think with platforms like that, you also have to think about, well, what am I signing up for, and what am I putting out, and do I have time to do that and to meet their expectations, as you say, so that your fans feel like they are having some sort of a relationship with you and some sort of community around your music. Well, I think that we're out of time, but thank you so much, and thanks to these panelists.
Just to let, round of applause, well done. Just to let you guys know, we've got a full slate the rest of the day. We've got 2 events actually starting here in 30 minutes. One in here, a partner panel on climate and energy, and one outside, which is kind of a